December 13, 2021 meeting of the Village of Lake Bluff, the Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ankerman?
Here.
Trustee Brienne?
Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Markey?
Here.
Trustee Rabin? Trustee Ryder?
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First, we have a proclamation designating December 2021 as National Drunk and Drugged Driving Prevention Month. Whereas every year, thousands of lives are needlessly lost on our nation's roadways because of alcohol and drug-impaired driving, and whereas alcohol, illicit drugs, and even over-the-counter and prescription medications can impair a driver's judgment, decrease motor coordination, and slow the reaction time necessary to safely operate a motor vehicle. And whereas December 8, 2021, the Illinois Department of Transportation fatal crash data reported there were 1,103 fatal crashes, of which hundreds of those deaths involved a driver impaired by alcohol and or drugs. And whereas the December holiday season is one of the deadliest times of the year for impaired driving and for thousands of families across the state and the nation, holidays are a time to remember loved ones lost. And whereas organizations across the state and the nation are engaged in the drive sober or get pulled over enforcement effort and other campaigns that foster public awareness of the dangers of impaired driving and anti-impaired driving law enforcement efforts. And whereas the Village of Lake Bluff is proud to partner with the Illinois Department of Transportation's Division of Traffic Safety and other traffic safety groups in that effort to make our roads and streets safer. Now, therefore, I, Regis Charlot, Village President of the Village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, do hereby proclaim the month of December 2021 as Drunk and Drugged Driving Prevention Month in the Village of Lake Bluff, and call upon all citizens, governments, agencies, business leaders, hospitals, and healthcare providers, schools, and public and private institutions to promote awareness of the impaired driving problem, to support programs and policies to reduce the incidence of impaired driving, and to promote safer and healthier behaviors regarding the use of alcohol and other drugs this holiday season and through the year. Thank you. Hard. Next is our consideration of the minutes of November 22nd, 2021, Village Board of regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Any changes?
There were changes circulated earlier tonight. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look at them.
Yes, true. The changes were, I assume primarily,
What we discussed earlier, having to do with
what
the conversation.
mine,
Yeah.
based on comments that I had made. So yes, I looked at them and these are much improved. Thank you.
So I'm advised to do a voice vote on that. Anyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next is our non-agenda items and visitors. The Village President and Board of Trustees allocate 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the Village Board of Trustees on any matter not listed on this agenda. Each person addressing the Village Board of Trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Anyone online who is interested?
I've been kicked out of the meeting. Do you see anyone online, Glenn?
Glenn, do we have anybody?
Still waiting on it to load back up myself, sir.
Thank you.
Seeing none, sir.
Thank you very much. I say we move forward. Next, the village board sets the order of a meeting. The village president and board of trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during this village board meeting. I understand that item 8A, item 22, and item 3, that is the consent agenda is of particular interest in this room. So I suggest we start with item 8A.
No objection.
Are there any objections? So next is item 8A, the village administrator's report, and specifically an informational report from North Shore Water Reclamation District regarding district operations and plans.
Yeah, thank you. As you just said, President Charlo, the NSWRD, the North Shore Water Reclamation District, is one of our local government partners. They were organized back in 1914 under the then title North Shore Sanitary District. They own and operate over 100 miles of intercepting sewer lines and 10 pumping stations, which are collecting and conveying wastewater to water reclamation facilities in Gurnee, Waukegan, and Highland Park. Lake Bluff flows to Highland Park. There are at least, I say, noteworthy assets of the NSWRD in Lake Bluff include the transmission mains and a pumping station down at the lakefront. And tonight we have with us our village's representative from the North Shore Water Reclamation District, Ward 4, Thomas Swarthout. He's here to give a presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
You're welcome.
Trustees. My name is Tom Swarthout. I live at 987 Maplewood in Lake Forest. I'm pleased to be here. I'm joined with Steve Waters, our senior engineer from the district. He's been with us for a couple of years. We're really glad to have him. So I'm here to answer any of your questions, and please interrupt me as we move on. I've been married 40 years, and I know what it's like to be interrupted. So I wanted to kind of first respond to some of the odor issues that we did have on the lakefront, and we've corrected that. And I'll go through that quick PowerPoint if you have it, and if somebody could, I don't know who's moving that around for me, but I appreciate that. So if we could back up, if not, I can just move on and describe what we do. And I know it's a long agenda. I was a former alderman in the city of Lake Forest. And I know what it's like to have a long agenda and then people showing up and rambling on like I'm doing right now.
Why don't you go ahead and get started, if that's all right, Mr. Swarthout? All the board members have a copy of it. and
Okay.
I'm having some technical
Okay, well, the
difficulties.
district, as you may know, is 100 years old. We do serve, our territory is really from Lake Cook Road all the way to the Wisconsin border, essentially from the tri-state east, and here we go, tri-state east. We do have some connections all the way out to Grays Lake and serve some of the residents out there. About 300,000 residents. We are the second largest district in the state. I hope to be able to show you some of our financial situations. Here we are. Here are some of the items, high points. One of the issues that I take a lot of pride in, I think everybody certainly in this room should take some pride in, is that we are a very fiscally prudent entity in the state, and that's, I don't think, talked about often. We have about $45 to $50 million of spending that we're anticipating over the next 10 years. We'll be able to fund that in-house. One of the issues that I like to have our people brag about is our pensions are fully funded. As Administrator Drew knows, the IMRF fund is in great shape, 94% funded, but our own fund is 109% funded, which is, I think, pretty extraordinary. Going on to the next slide, we are, if we can move on. There we go. We had, 1990 had about 200 employees. We have about half that as many currently. So we have 99 employees. We've been at that same level for some time now. We're always looking to try to reduce our costs, and certainly employees are a big part of that. We have the ability to have debt up to bond almost $400 million, and currently have about $7 million of outstanding debt. Up until a couple of years ago, we had no debt. And it's always challenging for us to even admit that, but there is a real effort on the part of administration as well as our trustees to always reduce our funding as much as possible. We are looking at a major project on our lakefront here in the village. It's going to be a $10 million project. We are currently in the queue to get funding through the Illinois EPA. That rate is, as you see, 1.1% plus, so it is an incredible, it's basically free money. So it's a 20-year term. I know the president is pushing for us to get information on that. We really don't know until November whether we will attain that or not. If we don't get it, and there's a lot of other districts trying to secure those funds, we can certainly go to the private market. We've actually had discussions with the private market, and we could certainly get rates under 2% currently. So I think that's an internal discussion we're having right now. I know the president would like to get some good news. I can't deliver that good news. There's 4 other trustees who weigh in on that. If it was my call, I certainly would move forward now, not knowing where rates are going to be in the next 6 months. I do know that rates are under 1.75 for our district. We are essentially a AAA rated entity, and the bonding agencies that we were speaking with over the last few days would love to be able to participate in funding of the project. Here's the map of what we serve, and I'm in the 4th ward, so I am between Highland Park. A little of the 5th ward takes on some of the southern parts of Lake Forest, and I take on a little of North Chicago, all of the village as well. Here's the history of the pumping station. The plant was started in the 20s. It was converted into basically a pumping station. It's a force main. We push our water uphill all the way to a connection out on the west side of the village, and then it is served into, it is pushed into Highland Park. As the president noted, or the administrator noted, we have 3 plants, one in Gurnee, one in Waukegan, and one in Highland Park. This is a lease that we have with the village, and it's been ongoing since the 20s. And we can move on, the next slide. Our project would be in this area. We would anticipate, and the drawings are completed, working drawings are completed, engineered, about a 1 million gallon tank that would service this facility, and this is for the very rare occasions where there are overflows. I think over the last 10 years, we've had half dozen situations where there was an overflow into the lake. I know my good friend Nick Patera, who's here, who will be following me in another issue, swims in Lake Michigan on a daily basis, and I would not interfere with his activities with polluted water. The issue of, Nick is a terrific asset for your village as a land planner. Here's what we've done over the last dozen years. We've automated the plant completely. There's a generator down on the facility. We've upgraded constantly. As you know, odor control facility was put in, and we've just improved that odor control facility. I'm glad it was brought to our attention. That's not going to happen again. We're not going to allow basically the material in there to be completely saturated, and we need to monitor that, I think, in a better way. We actually did put additional revetments down in the lake when the water level was an issue. Fortunately, it's not that case today, but it could resurface in the future. So we spent $450,000 to do that. In fact, we took on an extra so we could raise that from our initial bids. So this is really to prevent any overflows. As you see, we've had a number of them since 1994. And like in Lake Forest, it is to maintain the force main. Occasionally, we need to repair the pipe, and this allows us to contain the water when that happens. Obviously, when we do this project, it's a major undertaking. It will destroy the current road, and we will completely rebuild that road. And we certainly want to improve the facility in terms of the aesthetics. It's shameful, frankly, when I look at it. It's an industrial building, but it's really one of the gems that Lake Bluff has, and it shouldn't look like that. So part of the project will be the improvement of the aesthetics of that building.
More than the generator enclosure, yes? I mean, I
For
know
sure,
this-
for sure.
I just, slide says generator enclosure. I think we've talked about more than that.
We've talked about that. I think you've seen the renderings of what we would like to do. We'll bid it all out at the same time, but we certainly want to do that. Very similar to what we did in Lake Forest when that was done. You know, it's split face block, but we actually did put a hip roof on there and it's split cedar shingles.
The buildings need also a little bit of TLC. Quite a few parts of the walls are being damaged right now, so you can actually
sure.
see the cinder blocks and so
For
on.
sure, for sure. This is 100% underground. The general public won't know it exists. Very similar to what you'll see in Lake Forest in the coming slide. So we're going to actually build new storage facilities for your boathouse because those are going to be removed when we do the project. And landscaping would certainly be a big part of this. So we can move on. And this is the location of the new million-gallon tank. Again, when I say million-gallon tank, it's going to be completely below grade, so it won't be visible to the public. And the next slide will show, I think, the project that was underway in Lake Forest. It's very difficult to see, but the left corner slide, when it's under construction, you see the columns. That's about 24 feet in depth. So it's an engineering challenge. You sheet pile the entire perimeter, you pour the foundation, and then you encapsulate it with poured-in-place roof decking that gets, in this case, was asphalt. I'm not really sure of the details, how much asphalt will be put down and how much natural sand would be put over the top of it. But I think that's something that, obviously, this body, in coordination with the boaters, will have a say in, because it really doesn't matter to us. Whatever's most compatible for your yacht club. This is a carbon replacement project. I don't know if we need to dwell on it, but it was, if you want to see the inside of what a odor control system is, there you go.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
When was this replacement done?
It was done at the end of October.
Okay, so recently then.
Yep. This is an example of how stingy maybe the district is. That indicator right there is dark. We had a bid. The lowest bid was about $100,000. We were able to do this for about half that price and did it in-house. So we now have the expertise to do this. Because when we sucked out all the old material and brought in a crane and then lowered the material down. I kind of like watching all this stuff. We've kind of insisted on having pictures at our hearings, and so this whole building was installed some 20 years ago. So I think there's been a significant reduction in the odor that was an issue, and you can see the sensor here is just like every new filter is completely clean. So I think we need to do a better job of making sure this doesn't happen again. So you can see that was the low bid at $98,000, and we were able to do it in-house for that price.
Thank you, Tom. So first I want to thank you for your service as our NSWRD elected official. And I know that we're not very easy on you because we have questions. And I know that you are not on your own being part of your board, of course. And also we are a beach community. Lake Bluff was created as a beach vacation community. So we are sensitive to the state of our beach. And so I think that the question to, as you presented, the question to what will become to our beach in the next 36 months is important to all of us. One question I would have for you is how deep is going to be? You said the reservoir was going to be 36 feet, 8 meters?
I think it's over in the 24 feet in depth.
Sorry. So you would not see the reservoir, it would be below sand to a
Yes.
certain depth?
Yes, it's not going to be above grade. It'd be seamless, just like Lake Forest Beach right now. That parking lot, we pulled up the parking lot and then dug down and then repaved the whole thing. So you'll see a manhole access, but that's the only, and that will be on grade as well. So
Got it. Thank
just
you.
like any street manhole. And it's rarely filled. I mean, I think we've had some overflows in Lake Forest. Fortunately, we had the facility, but it's only happened a handful of times. So
Thank
it's
you.
been a real blessing.
Questions on this board? Susan?
A couple of questions. Can you talk a little bit more about the timing? So I think I see on this page, one of the dark blue pages, access to IEPA loans. And there's a lot of competition, I take it, for the 1.11% interest rate that we are competing for.
Those are the current rates, correct? And,
Yes.
go ahead.
And so my question is, when will it be determined whether or not we are eligible to get that? And when then will there be a determination as to us going to the private market, which I thought you said was the alternative if we don't succeed here? Or no? Maybe you could explain that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Steve Waters is here with the district. He probably can't answer that question either, but we won't know until November. So that is why I think that
November
of this
11th,
year. Of the.
2022.
Correct.
So this 21 to 22 timeframe, November after this timeframe is over, November 2022.
Yeah, we're in December, so 11 months from now, we will find out whether we get those 1.1% rate, and if that rate is available at 1.1% at that time. So I was, yeah. Go ahead.
Just a point of correction.
Sorry, Steve, you need to come to the microphone so that we can, it's not for the room, it's for our viewing audience.
Well, he's,
Sorry, Tom.
Two people.
you don't need,
The IEPA will give us notification in April of next year. And
so it's not November.
and the November that Tom is referring to is, that would be the earliest that we would be able to start on the project.
I see. So say in April of 2022, we find out that we are not one of the folks getting the subsidized interest rate. Do we then go to the market, to the private market thereafter? Is that what you're suggesting, or are we just out of luck until there's more IEPA loans?
Well, I think this is a moving target, so I could not answer the question definitively. If I was in charge, we wouldn't wait. If I was the only trustee voting on this, I would say, let's go to the private market now. Let's bite the bullet and pay 1.6, 1.7%. on that project, not knowing what construction costs will be a year from now, and start the project, and Steve is probably cringing, but start the project in mid-September of 2022. That would be my desire. I have other trustees and the director who want to take advantage of that. I am very confident that the private market would embrace this, knowing our fiscal situation. And,
So, Tom, I have a
of course-
question for you, because it's great. I mean, we started to talk together about this project about 6 months ago, or a little bit more than that. And I know that people in this community have been waiting for about 10 years before this project to happen. In this case, we're getting serious. And I believe that given your progress on this project or on the project plan for getting finances, on our end, we also have a task of preparing the community for people to be ready for it. There are multiple things that will happen after you know that you are funding. So from our standpoint, it's actually important to actually having a more definitive answer. Something that is, I would love that stuff to start next September, for example, so that we have also our own dependencies to occur in due time. So I would
Mr. President, completely get it. I completely get it. In your position, in the trustee's position, I know where you're coming from. So I will do what I can, and I know if you go back in time, back 10 years ago, we were ready to move forward, and there was some pushback, I think, from I don't know who, whether it was the Park District, it was the Village Board, whether it was the community at large. We were ready to put in this facility. The timing just didn't work.
Well, from
for-
a legal standpoint, this is the village of Lake Bluff land you're sitting on. The access road is also under, this is a joint stewardship in effect. So we have some level of willing to be pushing this project. And I think I've heard from a lot of people, let's make this happen.
Yeah, no, I'd love to make it happen. Love to make it happen.
Regis? could I-
Tom, what's the time frame for construction beginning to end for this project?
Yeah, so if you follow the model, and this is a smaller project, but it's a more constrained location. By the way, I'm a contractor. I built big projects, much bigger than this, small garage addition. So I've done everything, and I think we estimated that it would start in the fall, so the timing would go through the winter months, through the following summer, and be completed by the spring of that following year. So it's about an 18-month project, but one summer use would be impacted by this. That end of the beach would be non-accessible, essentially.
So I'm trying to figure out why an entity with adequate ability to obtain financing would, in this virtual certainty of increased interest rates, be deferring until next summer while we watch inflation take over.
Hey, I'm on board.
I know you
I-
are.
I'm completely on board with this
I'm making this point for your
argument
other
because-
four people that aren't, because given what we watch on the news every day, it's almost a certainty that we're going to be paying well over, you're going to be paying, somebody's going to be paying well over 1.6 by this time next year,
Yeah.
or even May of next year, when we find out whether or not we get this amount. So I don't want necessarily this to happen, but the finance costs are almost certainly going to go up. And so with a capacity.
I think you could
for-
remove the almost.
Right, with the capacity for taking
Right.
money now, as your entity seems to have, my fervent wish would be that we would be able to do that sooner than waiting to see what happens a year from now.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that based on not just the interest rate, but the cost of construction as we move forward, with the inflation rates, with the cost of cement, with the cost of labor, it's gonna, wipe out the interest, the .5
The 0.5, right?
interest,
Right, pretty fast,
pretty fast.
yeah.
Pretty fast.
Okay, so you can,
I think your feedback is helpful for me.
okay, I'm glad to give more of it. If you'd like some more.
Yeah.
Is the issue that we're competing with other projects along the North Shore, so that when
It's not the North Shore, it's the whole state.
right, so
And I'm sure there's districts who are in much dire strait than a tank that is seldom utilized,
Yes.
right? But it is Lake Michigan, so that's the big issue for us.
I have a couple questions for you, Tom. Can I just ask, so we're talking about the south end of the beach being inaccessible, but how will the north end of the beach be impacted? Will people be able to enjoy the north beach? What about the access road?
Yeah,
What
I
is the
thi-
timing on replacing the access road?
I think it's a great question. It's a real coordination question. It's a safety question. And yes, you'll be able to utilize the whole north end. We did that in Lake Forest. We basically shut off the south end. Parking was an issue, but I think we managed through it that one summer. And I think that's gonna be, and the parking in Lake Bluff is really not the issue here. It's the walkability and access to the lake. So how do you get construction vehicles down there? Are they restricted after 10 o'clock in the morning? Something like that. But it will be an issue, and obviously an issue for the neighbors as you bring out, 100,000 yards of earth, right? You got 1 million gallons of water, there's gotta be that amount of dirt coming out.
So my other question is about the coordination between the entities. So I know you're leasing land from the village, but the Park District also obviously plays a role.
Right.
And maybe I don't really know what my question is, but there's a lot of moving pieces. So I'm wondering if we're all in the same place as far as the village, the Park District, and the,
From our standpoint, we are basically coordinating with the Park District at the board level. We are making sure that as we get information from Tom, that Paul Greenfield will get that information, that everybody's on the same page.
Right.
Okay?
And with the staff level, we've been starting pre-planning meetings, and right where we're at now is pretty much what you see here in terms of, there are some, procedurally, the NSWRD will need to go in front of the village for site plan review to do this work. They're gonna need to hire a landscape architect to develop the plans, to make all their submittals. They're aware of that, they know that's what they need to do, kind of next steps. But I know the Park District was gonna start reaching out to Lake Forest, to see if there's other complementary services they can have to help ensure continuity of service during that time, construction period, so.
Good.
We're talking, planning.
excellent.
Are you suggesting that there could possibly be access for Lake Bluff residents to the Lake Forest Beach for the period that this is?
Yeah, I used to have a vote in that room, but I think that's the good neighbor policy I think we've always had. So I think that's not going to be a hurdle.
So we're trying to figure that out. Can we pull that off? Also, is there a way to maintain the sailing program, having,
Right.
trying
There's
to
a lot
try to,
going on
there are a
there.
lot of moving parts. And we probably won't be able to satisfy all the stakeholders, but the goal is, how many can we accomplish?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and we still have federal agencies, DNR, Army Corps,
Permits, yeah.
they're all, it's not an easy task, but I
Right.
think one that needs to be done.
A lot of steps.
Any more comments on this board?
I would just say that I would concur with Trustee Ryder's comments too, that when you go back to your colleagues, I understand the calculus, but I see your point. I think it's, maybe the law of diminishing returns comes into play. So I don't know what, I think everybody seems anxious to move forward with this. And
Yeah,
to
I
the
think-
degree that you can, it sounds like you have a lot of other things to take care of, not just the financing.
Yes, they're all reasonable trustees. They all have their own constituents. The person in Zion and the person in North Chicago
Sure.
and the person in Waukegan. I think the person in Highland Park gets the beach thing in a big way.
Right.
They have the same challenges and the same embrace of the lakefront. So we just need to get a couple of the trustees to, let's do it, go when the getting's good, and I think the getting's good now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
If I don't have any more questions on the board, I would also like to invite a member of the public to participate. Do we have any questions here? Please.
Hello, I'm George Russell, resident 448 Gurney Avenue, and I was before this board several times before. And as you're aware, we had a little volunteer group that, starting back in July, we started monitoring the odor problem down there. And I do want to take this opportunity to thank North Shore Water Reclamation District for moving forward with the road repairs, because I can attest as a frequent user of the beach that there are many, many residents that appreciated the second stage of the work that was done. I'm also happy to report that based on our informal observations, the odor has improved substantially. And that on most days, you cannot detect it at all, very similar to the situation in Lake Forest, which is what we've been using as our base comparison. There was one day, we don't know why, but it was a very still day, one of the warmer days since the filter meter was replaced, where there was this wall of sewage odor that you could walk through. So there's something still that is different, and I don't know if it has to do with the venting between the main building and where your odor control facilities are, but I would, as a resident, I would certainly ask that staff continue to monitor the odor situation to see if we can get a handle on why there still seems to be what right now is a very intermittent problem, but since the meteor was replaced, it's also when the weather started to turn. The winds have picked up, so it disperses the odor more quickly. But on this one day, it was dead calm, and the odor was very prevalent. I did drop an email, I think, to Dave, just reporting that fact and the date on which that occurred. So I just want to make the board aware of it, that there's something still there that hopefully we can all work together to correct that also. And that's all the questions that I have. Yeah, there's obviously dozens of detailed questions that I'm sure all community members are interested in terms of moving the project forward.
So I'd like to thank you first.
Thank you.
Because walking my dogs in town, I just always end up meeting you at Sunrise Park. So it's great, but thank you for very much for what you do for our community, George.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
There's people on the call. I don't know if they were interested.
So do we have anybody online who would like to make a comment? Please raise your hand in Zoom. No comment online.
And that's my report for tonight. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is item 22.
22.
Item 22 is a resolution adopting the 2021 Downtown Streetscape Concept Plan. As a summary, Lake Bluff's 2023 strategic plan states that the village will pursue a planned vision for the growth and sustainability of our downtown by igniting interest in the central business district as a destination location, and maintain and build upon Lake Bluff's charm and intrinsic character by preserving quality public space for community gathering and by implementing design principles that better integrate the train depot with our walkable neighborhoods and central business district. Streetscapes and their visual experience largely influence public places where people interact and ultimately define a community's aesthetic quality, economic activity, health, and sustainability. Streetscape plans are used to coordinate and guide the establishment of development regulations and standards, as well as to provide guidance in the evaluation of future decisions on land use, public and private infrastructure improvements, transportation, and other issues. Lake Bluff has pursued the redevelopment and revitalization of its central business district since 1996 and previously adopted a streetscape concept plan to guide the development of a central business district through the adoption of Resolution 2003-7 and the accepted report of the Architectural Board of Review, ABR, on February 26, 2007 for what we call the prior streetscape plan. through 2021, and at the direction of a village board, the ABR has studied and prepared a new Lake Bluff downtown streetscape concept plan. We call it the 2021 plan, with the assistance of a professional planning consultancy, Tesca Associates of Evanston, Illinois. Following extensive community engagement, the ABR, after receiving and incorporating feedback from village property owners, businesses, and residents, recommended on November 2nd, 2021, that the village board adopt the 2021 plan. I believe I did not ask for a motion on this item.
So moved.
Thank you very much. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on this item?
I just wanted to add that we had a pretty lively discussion about this in the Business Advisory Committee meeting. Was it 2 weeks ago, Drew?
Yep.
And got a lot of good feedback, so I'm sure that'll be incorporated into the plan as we move forward. And it's my understanding that if we go ahead and adopt this plan, that we still have the ability to make changes and make, kind of update it and move, as we're moving forward, if we decide to make some changes to it, that's a possibility.
Yes. Jody, would you please come up? Because the board had just talked about this most recently at the committee of the whole meeting on November 22nd, I told Jody, you can be prepared, but not necessarily count on going through the whole presentation again. But I just wanted to give a quick update, if that's all right, based off the feedback that we received today.
Oh, yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Again, I'm Jody Mariano with Tesca Associates. Since we were here last November 22nd at the last board meeting, there were some meetings that took place. I participated in a SEC meeting, and we got some good feedback from them. We also received some correspondence from the library director upon their further review of the plan. So this document that you see up here that you got in your packets is generally the exact same plan that we looked at together back in November with like 3 minor things. So I'll just point them out. On page 21 is a reference to the library area where the seating nook is proposed, and so we wanted to clarify that there would be no changes to the existing seating and memorial area, so that's just notated there. On page 28, we also added a couple of notes following the feedback we received from the SEC, advocating for secure bike racks at the Metra station. And then we also added that image at the bottom right to clarify that the paving recommendation for the downtown streetscape is in keeping with what's under construction currently on Scranton Avenue, and that's just a very simple broom finish concrete paving material. And then lastly, on page 29, following the conversations we had with the SEC, there was a lot of interest in promoting a dark skies initiative with the lighting, and so we've included some text at that top paragraph advocating for the dark skies, which basically means investigating whether some additional housings could be incorporated into the existing village standard light pole, and also shielding or hoods for the proposed Festoon string lights.
Can you explain that, just that last point, the hoods for the Festoon?
The hoods for the
Yeah,
Festoon lights,
yeah.
absolutely, yes. So the dark skies, as you all know, is about keeping lighting downward facing, not projecting upward into the sky. It's better for wildlife and for promoting dark skies. This product, the Festoon lights, offers a shield, which basically looks like a small housing. They come in different shapes, but what it does is it puts a cap on the top of the bulb, so the lighting still projects downward. It just doesn't project upward.
That was a comment that the village heard, like, are we worried about maybe like some of the second-story residents? If you see here, it's visually, most folks wouldn't know that it's there unless you were up above it.
I like that.
Is there a price difference if we're looking at these caps? Because we've spent a great deal of time talking about if the lights are worth it. And I've been a vocal supporter of the twinkly lights, but I'm getting to the point where we keep adding on concerns, you know.
Sure. I will say with the Festoon light assemblies, the most expensive component of that assembly is the electrical and the structural poles. The actual string lights and the bulbs themselves and the caps are are not expensive compared to that. I mean, I think that they equate to, like a few bucks each, and so it's not a hugely expensive component to the system.
That's the good news. It's the one thing that's not super expensive, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the other elements of the presentation, when we talked about it a couple weeks ago, was the idea that entry between the Village Green and Block 1 is significant, and some of the scenarios suggested making it one-way versus two-way, and I thought that was just, a discussion that I thought was very, very deep, very rich. We just kind of scratched it, and I want to be sure that when we look at what we're recommending, we haven't really explored that fully. It's just something that it's not been recommended, it's not been defined, it's something that we need to look at and revisit, I think. I think that, I'm hoping that what we're saying is that that's something that we still need to discuss and research further. Is that an accurate statement based on what's in this report? Yeah.
That is our understanding. I mean, I could maybe furthermore say that the plan calls for more pedestrian-friendly, more community gathering type spaces. That said, there are multiple ways to skin that cat. And so that Block 1 treatment, we had offered, and you'll see it in the appendix, we offered to the ABR multiple other options. That was the concept that was put forward, but that said, that's not the only way to provide those pedestrian-friendly and community gathering type spaces. So,
Understood.
so for sure, a concept, a preliminary concept that can be further explored.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Jody. One of the meeting I've attended was the Business Advisory Board, and people like it. But we had an animated conversation on that one way. And a couple people said, you know what? It's an entrance point to the village. It's bad that we exit the village by that entrance point. So what would it be if we were to reverse that one way? So it would be an entrance point to the village, and it would be a one-way inverse to what we have today.
It could be. I mean, I could share that some of the discussion we had with the ABR was that the ABR specifically liked the one-way westbound because they felt like they really wanted to protect this from being a thoroughfare, that people were coming in and driving too fast. So they saw that as a benefit for traffic calming. But that said, certainly it could be explored further.
I have a lot of comments. I realize we're not going to get in the weeds on this, but that's one of the comments, is I agree with Trustee Ankerman. I actually think we should. I think the cart's a little bit before the horse, in the sense that we should be discussing the details before administrative staff goes looking for the money. So one of the things that I did is I went out with a tape measure and measured this, and I just hope everybody realizes that the depth of the sidewalk off of B Market is 41 feet. It goes to the yellow line as drawn. It's 41 feet off. This is a gigantic amount of concrete. It's about 6,000 square feet, give or take. I thought we left it that we were gonna table this. As Barbara rightly pointed out, let's wait and see how we like what we just did. The reason that I'm not in favor of this is drawn, and I'm paying attention to the most expensive aspect, not the library, not Block 3 or anything else, although I think those merit conversation, is that the axis that runs east-west from the front of the train station to the lake has existed for 100 years, and this will be right in it at 41 feet deep. There are so many issues with doing that, not the least of which is interrupting an east-west access, which is a fundamental design principle. So at the last meeting, Trustee Rappin said that he didn't think this was a material change. I agree, I don't think it is. I think it's radically fundamental. It will radically alter, as drawn, the downtown, which I just can't support. I think if you do a quick survey in your mind of every entrance point between here and Evanston, there isn't one that is one way going west that says to people coming off Green Bay or Sheridan, do not enter. So I support some of this in the sense of widening the sidewalk a little bit. I think that Mickey Collins gave us an option that we should explore. I don't know if everybody knows that the street here would be concrete, which is gonna be a substantial part of the cost. This is just an incredible cost. And the cost-benefit analysis just isn't there. We're improving something to the tune of $1 million, and we're just not gonna see a return on that investment. Grant money or otherwise, we don't know how much we're gonna be on the hook for, whether it's 50, 60, 40, 20, we don't know. I think personally, we should go back and look at this and get the details hammered out before Drew and Glenn go looking for the money. I think that's the logical way to do this. But I just want to appeal to everybody's sense of space. This is a phenomenal change. Walk it off. Walk off or measure 41 feet off the front of B Market, and you're going to be standing on the yellow line in the middle of Scranton. That's how much sidewalk there will be. I just don't know if everyone understands the fundamental change this is going to make to the feel of a historic downtown that won't be historic anymore. And in addition, there are a couple other things. This shows Festoon lighting obscuring the oldest building in the central business district. You won't be able to see it clearly anymore because you will have these 18-foot poles obscuring the oldest building there. You're taking away with this as, and again, I'm talking about as drawn, a loading zone in front of a bank that uses an armored truck. They have to have that. I don't know if anybody's spoken with Lynn Van Cleve from Wintrust, but someone should let her know. That probably is not okay with them. That's also a delivery zone for the restaurants. It really has to stay there. It has to. So the two-way street is essential for myriad reasons that we're not thinking about. I understand the calming effect, but we've heard testimony from an engineer to the contrary. We know that villages and municipalities all over the country are reversing one-way streets. So I think that there's an idea here, and we need to really rein it in. And I mean, there's so many, I have other comments, but my general feeling is, just like last time, we're doing something, we're going out looking for money with this concept. And then we're gonna go back and make changes to it, but we've got the budget for this. That seems a little backwards to me. So I think we should look at the details and then find the funding.
Would putting the approval off of this plan, which doesn't, this was one of several recommendations. It's not the only. But if we did it as was being suggested here, would that hamper our ability to potentially access funds that it does have a window? I mean, we could talk about this for a very long time until the next board comes, and we'll still have new brilliant ideas and insights. I love half of what you said, just off the face of it, obscuring that corner building. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I think you've got some great thoughts, and I think there'll be time to hash that out if the funding happens, but I do think there's a window of opportunity that, at least we're being advised by staff, having this vision approved gets us one step closer to being able to obtain funding. A lot of pieces fall into place. They don't all, you can't all have this and then all have that, and then it's all done. It would be the most efficient, right? But we know it's iterative. And so we're trying to say to staff, are we missing the opportunity if we say, let's get closer in the iterations, and then we've missed our window? I don't know.
So I think there's an essential point here that is not spoken about, that is, it's not, getting the funding is very much the step that comes after we have discussed this plan. I mean, when I moved in Bluff in 1996, there was nobody at the corner. There was nobody at the corner at 5 p.m. on Friday, at 7 p.m. and at 10 p.m. even less. And the point we're creating here is, Lake Bluff from the past is very nice, but Lake Bluff from today, if you see block parties a few times a year in that space, is important. What you see also is having a pandemic and being able to cope during a pandemic by putting businesses out is important. And we're creating a space for that.
I know,
And
but
so-
we're saying that we still have options. We're not saying
We
that
do
this
have
one.
options.
Right, and so
But-
we all agree that it's important.
But we do not, absolutely, but we are deciding on a set of options for what it is today. To Kate's point, what
the two-way traffic with reduced lane was probably a very seductive possibility instead of a one-way, fine. But I think it is important to consider that we have an important space in town, and we can sustain what we have lived for the past 2 years. That is animation, people meeting, people able to be outside and still being together during a pandemic. And I hope we continue on that trend in the next 20 years.
I do support that, but the question remains, are we missing a window of opportunity if we continue to refine this iterative process closer to what it may end up looking? That's the question for staff.
Well, I think the biggest next opportunity is a grant window that closes essentially the first week of January.
Right, and so that's why
Yeah.
we all agree it's an iterative process. We all agree that this document is not where we want it to be. And the more we talk about it, the more we have very intelligent and insightful things that are being brought up that I don't think can and should be ignored. I don't, and so thank you. But I also understand the importance of timing, and I think that we would be remiss in not taking the best version of what we have right now and using it to see if those opportunities and windows can be taken advantage of.
If I might, I hear you. My problem is, in my conversation, Drew and I spoke at length this morning, which I really appreciated, and this is what's going to be submitted. So it's this, and my fear is that we will become married to this, and while I understand what President Charlot is saying, I also understand that the return on this is just not that much. It really isn't, from a cost-benefit analysis. So I understand this whole idea of build it and they will come. That just doesn't always happen. What I don't know, and I still don't have the answer to, is, and I've watched the other meetings, is the percentage to which we as a village are on the hook. I've heard 80-20, I've heard 50-50, and I think that is a question we need an answer to, because as I've talked to other people, $1 million is just an estimate. It could be a lot more with costs going up. What are the parameters of the grant? What kind of money are we searching for? This is huge. This is just so huge. So I totally hear you, and it's an iterative process, but I'm worried that we're going to go, look, we got the money for this. And then everybody goes, oh, well, we got the money for this. And back in 1996, well, back in 1971, there were people everywhere. So we were dry, but there were people all over the place. So that's my point, is I just want to make sure we're not.
Well, I think if it happens soon, we'll have that opportunity.
But we still don't know what, I'd like an answer to that question about
Thank you. Thank you. So my question to you, Jody, is, so we have a plan today. Can we put options within that plan to have a few variations to that plan to satisfy Kate in this? I mean, I think Kate has a few good points in that conversation. That is, we don't really know what the cost is, and we probably have still questions about one ways or two ways or restricted two ways. But what is important to us, I believe, in the past and in the different boards, is the fact that we're creating a space for the community. So can we create that variability?
I'm sorry?
Can we create that variability, the possibility of variations of that plan?
So I don't know if I understood the question, but I can say that this grant that the village was looking for was the Illinois Build Grant. It's an 80-20 grant. It's a new grant. It has to do with communities and business districts that were impacted by the pandemic. So it's a brand new grant. We don't have experience with it because this is the first year it's being offered. I could share that from our past experiences with other grants. Typically, a master plan like this will be used to apply and to get those funds. The next step will be to go through the final construction documentation, the final engineering, and all those costs will then be defined. So for instance, if there is a dollar amount that the village is unable to spend beyond that, the design will be tailored to that amount. I don't believe that anybody would put the village on the hook to force more expenditures beyond that. So this is a concept that, is done to build support and to make those grant applications, but next phase would be final design engineering, final cost estimating as well.
So when you say 80-20, that's 80% the state of Illinois?
Correct.
Thank you. And so from a plan to a final design document, we still have the possibility to tailor that design to late concerns such as one-way, two-ways, and other things like that.
And affordability.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Affordability.
Yes.
right? Yeah. So yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions on the board?
I know I think there's people on the call as well, just so you know, I'm sorry.
Before we move to any last questions?
I just wanted to say, I think we had, like you mentioned earlier, we had a really lively discussion about this in the Business Advisory Committee meeting. And the fact that it's not all set in stone, even if we approve it tonight, we're just basically saying this is a concept plan that we're interested in moving forward with. I think we would be remiss in not trying to get the grant in the beginning of January. If we could get that, then we could, as Kate said, work more through the details. But I know Block 1 looks really different when you're looking at this. It's really different than how it looks today. But I also think that the families in our community, we use Block 1 differently. So if we stretch that sidewalk all the way out, then we have more access to put outdoor dining right there, which is what we wanted to do initially, was to have the dining on the other side of the street where it's safer. So I feel like there's benefits as that block kind of bleeds into the green. It lends itself to what we've been doing with that block, which is having block parties and kind of combining those two spaces. I know it looks radically different than what we're used to, but I think it also serves a purpose, and if we can do it economically and make that space feel a little more continuous, I think it would be great for the village. Just my opinion on that.
In my recollection from the BAC meeting, the biggest issue, and probably the only issue, was debating the one-way, two-way.
Yes.
I mean, that was it. Everything else, everybody was very comfortable and very supportive of, which is,
Yeah.
so, and people were very passionate about it from both sides.
Yes, but I agree.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. We need to talk about like
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the bank deposits, or like I didn't think about that. So there are things we need to hammer out. I feel like we can find compromise for that, and we can still make Block 1 a little bit more workable for what our community's looking for right now.
And so just to address that, that is something that the ABR did talk about, the idea that this design is a flexible design, and that the idea that the north side of the street could serve, I mean, that the idea that there still could be that service lane there, the idea that these spaces could be function and, by hour of the day. And I mean, there's plenty of communities that limit the amount of service vehicles when they're allowed in and out of the central business district. It's a very common regulatory approach. So there's different ways to address those issues.
Yeah, maybe I could just piggyback on that. We recognize that, there was a lot of concrete there, but we also aim to break that up with plantings. And so that's why you see green planting beds as well as tree plantings in that space. And so in doing that, we understand is the loading zone that's part of the turn lane, part of the right turn lane. And so the recommendation was to relocate that to the combined service drive area, assuming that the loading into the bank would still be using the alleyway, whether they were loading in the turn lane or loading in the combined service drive.
Jody, I don't think the Brinks truck will go behind the building for safety reasons.
Not behind the building, just
they
to the
won't.
east, so still on the street.
I think they probably have parameters about how close they have to be to a bank, but that would be something Lynn Van Cleve from Wintrust could answer for you.
And sure, and those are certainly conversations that would need to happen as part of final engineering, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have comments online? Do we have people willing to?
There's a handful of, there's one hand, yep. And that's the Library Executive Director, Eric Bailey.
Hello?
We hear you.
Ah, excellent. No, I gather where we're going here. You don't want to miss grant opportunities. Those are important. Just wanted to jump in real quick, highlight, of course, what's included from the Building and Grounds Committee from the library, which is that that refinement phase here, I think, is very important. There were a lot of concerns that were discussed on the library side as far as impact on the property as well as on the current traffic flow there in the corner of Oak and Scranton. So, but as long as there is built into the process an opportunity for, these things to be addressed and ironed out, after the grant has been applied for and hopefully received, then fingers crossed that should be okay. But as noted, and as I think a lot of folks have noted, there's a lot of questions throughout. So I don't know where I'm going with this point. So I'll just end my comments and turn things back over.
And Eric, just so you know, your comments that you were provided were included in the appendix. So, and those were
Yep,
no.
I saw.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Eric. Any more?
Is there any other callers on the Zoom call that would like to offer any comment on this item? If so, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. There we go. Another. Mr. Dornicker?
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I just thought I would comment and kind of echo some of the things that have been said, but I think the work that's been done is really incredible, and obviously that's not what we're hashing out here. But we have yet to hit our pre-pandemic numbers, and that's with the extra seating that you guys thankfully extended for us. So I've appreciated seeing some of the design here in Block 1 to address some of these post-pandemic needs that we're going to have. And so, I would just like to say, I hope you guys can at least approve this to apply for the grant, and then, kind of work through the details later.
And Mike, would you please identify yourself just in case some.
Yeah, sorry. I'm Mike Dornicker, owner of Lake Bluff Brewing.
Thank you, Mike, for your comments. We have you at heart. I mean, you're running our brewery after all. Any more people online?
Anyone else wishing to provide comment on this item?
Thank you.
I have one question that nagging at me. Each of the concepts drawings have a concrete for the 1 or 2-way street at Block 1. What's the notion behind that being concrete? Why is that important to the design?
Sure. So the ABR, and we talked at length about the surface treatment for Block 1. And the proposal was to have it function as a shared street. Could you go to the next page? Who's controlling it? But thank you. So the proposal was to create a shared street. So that means that the elevation of the street on the north side of Scranton Avenue is the same elevation as the sidewalk on the north side. And what that does is it provides flexibility for the village, for the businesses to have events and let tables and chairs and tents kind of bleed out into the street. And so it would feel like a plaza space. So on most of the days of the year, it would function like a regular roadway. On those special events, it would function as a plaza. And so for that reason, the ABR recommended a concrete pavement surface. But there again, we know it's got to be a drivable surface. Doesn't necessarily have to be concrete. We've seen lots of shared streets that are asphalt, but that was the concept that was shown in the plan.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, I would like to bring a voice vote on this item. So it is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Thank you. The resolution carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jody. Next item is our consent agenda. Is there a request to remove any one of these items from the consent agenda? So we will proceed with that list. Is there a motion to accept? Let me read first the items. So what we have as part of a consent agenda is acceptance of a correspondence,
Please note all correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational reports on November 19, 26, and December 3rd, 2021. We also have item 12, a resolution authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with Gaywalt and Milton Associates for the design engineering for the village fiscal year 2022 sanitary sewer manhole rehabilitation project. We have item 13, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with Metra for the train station platform lighting project. We have item 14, a second reading of an ordinance approving a final plan and special use permit for Lot 1 of Arden Shore subdivision on 425 to 429 Shore Acre Drive. We have item 15, a resolution approving a site plan for Shore Acres at 1601 Shore Acres Road. And last, we have item 16, a resolution approving a license agreement to use a portion of a village property on 700 Mountain Road. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you.
To approve the consent agenda.
To approve a consent agenda. Thank you, Peter. Any discussion on these items? If hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Brienne,
Aye.
Trustee Fisher,
Aye.
Trustee Markey,
Aye.
Trustee Ryder,
Aye.
Trustee Inkman.
Aye.
Thank you. And from this point, we are resuming the order of our meeting. And that would be item number 7, our village finance report. Item number 7 is our warrant reports for November 23rd to December 13, 2021, and November 2021 payroll expenditures. The expenditures of village fund for the summary of background and reason for request are expenditures of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $322,016.55 for November 23rd to December 13, and expenditure of village funds for payment of payroll in the amount of $302,409.66 for November 2021, for a total expenditures of $624,426.21. You will find two reports and documents attached: the warrant report for November 23rd and December 13, and the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 payroll report. Is there a motion to approve a warrant?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
So any questions on this warrant? It is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
That sounds
Should be a
like
roll
call
call.
vote.
It's a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher,
Aye.
Trustee Markey,
Aye.
Trustee Ryder,
Aye.
Trustee Inkman,
Aye.
Trustee Brienne.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next is our village attorney's report.
No report tonight.
Thank you very much. Next is my report. First is the appointment of Arthur Cottrell to the Architectural Board of Review. Is there a motion to approve the appointment of Mr. Cottrell?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Subject to the consent of the Board of Trustees, the village president appoints members to the village various advisory boards and commissions. Village President Charlot recommends the appointment of Arthur Cottrell to fill the final vacancy on the ARB, Architectural Board of Review. If approved, Mr. Cottrell's term will expire on April 30, 2023. Any questions on this?
This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The appointment carries. On my report also, we had a few events lately. We celebrated our 11th annual It's a Wonderful Life in Lake Bluff holiday celebration. I would like to thank the Lake Bluff downtown merchants, including Lake Forest Bank and Trust, the Lake Bluff History Museum, the Lake Bluff Library, the Lake Bluff Brewery. Thank you, Mike. The Lake Forest Bank and Trust, and especially Joanna Rolek with the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Chamber of Commerce. And I believe this is one of her most enjoyable events she gets to put together for us in this community. So thank you, Joanna, as well. We also had our Lake Bluff Fire and Rescue annual Santa ride yesterday. I hope you saw those fire trucks. Each year, fire department volunteers look forward to sharing this special moment with our residents. And I have to read that. As I am told, Santa has returned to the North Pole for now, but said he's looking forward to doing it again next year. So thank you, Santa, and thank you for our volunteers in the fire department. Next, we are moving forward to our other business, item 17, and this would be the second reading for an ordinance levying property taxes for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2021, and ending April 30, 2022 for the Village of Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Pursuant to state law, on or before the last Tuesday in December, the village must file with the county clerk an ordinance requesting a property tax to be levied on all taxable property within the village. After review of levy estimates and financial projections as presented by staff, the Finance Committee at their October 25th meeting unanimously recommended approval of an aggregate property tax levy of $4,556,637. Subsequent to the Finance Committee meeting, the county assessor provided updated EAV estimates that were used to make an adjustment to the aggregate tax levy of $4,556,707. The village share of a property tax levy is $3,523,979. The Lake Bluff Public Library Board requested a property tax levy of $1,032,728 for the year 2021. The total levy amount of $4,556,707 is in compliance with the Property Tax Limitation Act, and the Truth in Taxation Act was not required for this levy. The Village Board approved first reading of the ordinance at its November 22nd meeting. Questions of the board?
I don't know if there's anybody else on the line who would like to comment.
Anybody online who would like to comment?
I had a quick question
Joy,
for
please.
Bettina. Is Bettina on? Bettina's on?
She is.
Oh, Bettina, I was just wondering if the library board, if they changed their request at all since we last talked.
No, the library board did not change the request based on our estimate, and I think Eric's letter was included in the packet with the same number requested.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions on this board? Thank you, Bettina. So hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
No.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Oh, sorry.
Next is item 18, a second reading of an ordinance abating 2021 property taxes levied for general obligation debt series 2019 and 2019A bonds for the Village of Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
Thank you. The village currently has refunding bonds, Series 2019 and 2019A, general obligation bonds outstanding pursuant to ordinances 2019-18 and 2019-26. The county clerk is required to extend a property tax levy in an amount sufficient to pay the interest and principal on the bonds. Fortunately, the Waterworks Fund has adequate funds to transfer to the Waterworks bond and interest account for principal and interest payments on the 2019 general obligation bonds and the 2019A refunding bonds, which allows the village to abate the annual property tax levy. Because the bond ordinances directing extension of the annual property tax levy were filed with the county clerk, an ordinance is required to abate, not levy, the property tax for these bonds. The village board approved first reading of the ordinance at its November 22nd meeting. Any question on this item? Anybody online who would like to provide a comment, please?
No, sir.
Thank you. So, hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item number 19, an ordinance amending the village's accessory animal licensing regulations. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. In January 2021, the village board concluded 2 pilot programs to authorize the keeping of chickens and beehives on residential property and adopted similar regulations in the village code. At present, there are 9 active chicken licenses in the village, no active bee licenses, and no substantiated complaints regarding any licensee. When adopted in the village code, the accessory animal licensing program retained certain provisions of a pilot program, including a limit on the number of active licensees, increased from 5 to 10, and a requirement that each application be subject to public notice and a review before an advisory body of a village. Since January, the village has issued 5 additional licenses. Consequently, only 1 additional license can be approved without an amendment to the village code. In addition, among these 5 applications, a number of situations arose where the public notice and review requirements presented practical difficulties for applicants, included but not limited to the inability to secure a quorum on the SEC. Accordingly, staff presented these 2 provisions of a licensing program to the SEC for its review and a recommendation to the village board. At its November 3rd, 2021 meeting, the SEC reviewed these 2 provisions and unanimously recommended that the village, 1, raise the license cap from 10 to 15 total licensees, and 2, no longer apply the public notice and review provisions to chicken keeping license applications. The application process for future chicken applications would be administrative, similar to a building permit. Staff would continue to conduct an initial inspection of each licensee and have recourse to require additional inspections and have the ability to revoke a license for cause. The attached draft ordinance would implement those changes. Any question?
So,
Sorry?
yeah, so I don't have a problem with raising the license cap from 10 to 15. I think that's fine. But I do have a little bit of an issue with the second point about not having the public notice. Drew and I spoke earlier, and it's my understanding that if we don't have the public notice, the neighbors are not aware of what's going on. And I guess I just feel like, especially on the east side of town where homes are pretty close, that neighbors should have some understanding if their next door neighbor's deciding to have chickens. It's not like getting a dog, it's a little bit different. So I'm uncomfortable with the second point, and I feel like I have watched some of the SEC meetings, and usually when someone comes forward with a chicken application, it's a pretty long process. I feel like they could streamline it. It could be a 5 to 10 minute conversation. Do you have a coop? Can you show us where it's going to be? Do you understand safety issues with chickens? What have you? It could be a very short 5 to 10 minute conversation during that meeting, and I think that would suffice. I think we have a quorum now for the SEC. We've added several people to that board. So I guess my feeling would be I'd like to continue to have that public notice. I think it's only fair to the neighbors surrounding the people that are getting, applying for a chicken.
I'd like to just reiterate that I think was my thoughts as well. I think that we're now working on the assumption that there are no problems because there kind of have been no problems. But I think that review process has really raised the standard for entering into this decision to decide whether you're going to have chickens or bees. And I think it's an important threshold for people to cross so that it's not taken lightly. And if we were to eliminate that public review process, it might quickly get to be a little bit higher and be a problem. So the past not being an indicator of problems, it really might be an indicator of how the system is working in preventing people who really would be not responsible from entering into that type of a decision. In terms of the number, I don't know what the magic number is. I don't think anybody is. I'm really not excited about just, more people want to do it, let's just increase the number. Because once again, just because we haven't had a problem yet doesn't mean that we're not going to. So I don't know what the magic number is. We're being advised by the SEC, let's limit it to 15. We're kind of near capacity. I don't have a good reason for saying no, other than I just want to have continued success. I highly, highly value the quiet and peaceful enjoyment of my own home, and I think that I want that for everybody else too. It's not too high a standard to, aspire to. So I guess I have a little bit of trepidation in raising the number, but there is no, way to know what the right number is. I would just kind of bring that up for consideration of other board members if that number gave anyone else pause. I kind of feel like I'm shocked that there are 9 households who have, gone through all this process. And I don't know. I think we've been blessed. I don't want to push it. But
So-
I don't have a magic number, and I'm not saying yes or no. I want to have other board members thoughtfully
So
consider it.
paraphrasing what you said, you don't have a problem with a number. You would like to strike provision number 2 in this paragraph. And I would like to point out that chicken are a very gentle animal, by the way. So
Well, I mean, a
I
lot
grew
of
up with
people
that.
have dogs, and some people are, really affected by dogs more than others. But who's going to say, well, let's not have dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, everyone has different sensitivities. I don't want to go there, but I'm just saying, let's thoughtfully consider it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would echo both trustee Markey and trustee Ankman's sentiments. Drew and I also spoke this morning, and I really value people's input. If you notice, all of the letters are people who did not want their neighbors to have chickens, every single one. Some of the lots are really small, and I think we have 9 people that are doing it that asked for permits. We don't know how many people are doing it who didn't. I mean, there's always gonna be 1 or 2. I think we should maybe leave things the way they are. If we can streamline the process, that would be great, but I'm not sure, I'm always in the less is more camp. So maybe increase it by 2 or 3, but I'm not sure we need to go to 15. I agree, there's no magic number, but I'm not sure what we're trying to accomplish by doing that. But I do think the public has a right to know, and they should be involved. And it is a long process, so if we have a quorum now in the SEC, people should go through the process. It's important.
Thank you, Kate. So paraphrasing yourself and Barb,
what we're seeing here is the process is actually what prevents us from having issues or prevents us from basically, or making this program actually successful in its current implementation by listening to the neighbors, for example. And so from a number standpoint, I hear maybe 2 or 3, but less is more in your case. And what you're saying also from a process standpoint, maybe we should work toward streamlining this process to make it less onerous on the SEC. That's what I hear as well. Okay? Thank you. Taryn?
Yeah, I'll just say, I agree. I really would like to see the process remain the same, but I think I'll just give a little bit of support for the practice of raising and having chickens. I think they have a bad rap, and I think it's easy to say the things we assume about chickens, that they're loud, that they smell. Part of the process put in place is to make sure that the people raising chickens are responsible. That includes maintaining a clean, safe coop for their chickens, making sure the coop is protected so that it's, animals aren't coming in and killing the chickens. But more importantly, as we all are embracing the concept of sustainability and green living, and we're looking into a future where resources are dwindling, I think it's important to support people's efforts to be self-sustaining. These aren't just pets. They provide eggs. They provide meat. I don't know the process, but I do know that you can send your chickens, if you want to eat them, out to other farms to be processed. So the point that I'm trying to make is, respectfully, I think I would prefer us moving forward with the 15 because it is inconsequential. And then perhaps if we are seeing a boost in chicken interest, that we then have a more robust study of what that impact is. We're not a farm town, so again, it's striking a balance. But I am friends with some Lake Bluffers who are raising chickens, and I'm friends with Evanstonians who raise chickens, and you would be shocked at how quiet and pleasant they are. They really aren't as big of a distraction as maybe the concern that people automatically have. That's what I'll say. But yes, I'd like to keep that process in place. I think it's in the best interest of the animals.
Yes, thank you. Susan?
Yes, I'll echo what Taryn said. And as to the question as to the number, I think the reason, or a reason why we might have gone incrementally is to ensure that we had a smooth transition into this. We didn't sort of know how it was going to go, and it's gone, what I'm hearing, quite well. And so given that the interest is there, I support raising to 15. But as Sharon said, I think one reason it's prudent for us to identify that one of the reasons that it may have gone as well as it has is the process that is cumbersome, but does create some incentives for only those who are serious about the prospect of getting into the chicken raising and egg raising business, if you will, or practice. And so I think the system that we currently have, the license application system that we currently have, ought to remain in place, can be streamlined if possible, but I support another incremental raise to the number to 15.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. So I'm getting a comment that we basically have enough people to basically deny provision number 2 and support provision number 1, that is to 15 licensee. And so I would ask Taryn to amend your motion to reflect supporting number 1 and rejecting number 2, if you mind.
Yep, so amended.
And we had a second from Joy.
I second that.
Thank you. So, any more, sorry, any more questions?
So just to could you clarify, so what we're going to vote on is that the public process that exists today will continue?
Correct.
And the number of licenses available would be capped at 15?
Correct.
And would there be any time frame associated with that 15 cap? Like for the next year or two, how do we do that in terms of how, where somebody goes, oh, I'm number 16?
You can stay at 15 forever.
Okay, we
And-
could stay
and
that
it
way.
would-
Just say
It would
we're-
likely, you would probably
we're-
get another recommendation from the SEC again, that we're
Got
getting
it.
close, knocking on that door.
Okay.
Just to
You
remember,
have to reapply every year?
I'm sorry?
Is there a reapplication?
No,
every year?
there's a streamlined process for reapplication. They don't have to come back to the board. The licenses stay the same.
Right, but if somebody doesn't come back, then the 15th becomes available.
It's like liquor licenses,
Right,
yes.
Right.
That's what I
It's
was just
available
gonna
license,
say. If
yes.
somebody drops off and,
Yes.
or, moves, then that just pops up. Okay, so it's a revolving door. Okay.
So again, this is going to be a voice vote.
First reading.
A voice vote, first reading on this item, including provision number 1, that is 15 maximum licenses, and no provision 2 on this vote, okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next is item number 20. That is an ordinance amending the Lake Bluff zoning regulations to authorize and regulate accessory dwelling units. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Consistent with the village's 2023 strategic plan and comprehensive plan, the PCZBA has been discussing accessory dwelling units, ADUs, which are small houses, apartments, that are on the same zoning lot as a single-family residence. They are commonly called granny flats or in-law suites, and are envisioned as an additional component of a village housing strategy for people such as older family members, students, and others that are underserved by the village detached single-family residences. The PCZBA developed its proposed accessory dwelling units regulations for over the past 16 months. The process included numerous public meetings, reviews of local and national examples of ADU regulations, the preparation of a series of example design prototypes by a licensed architect and land use planner, and consultation with the Architectural Board of Review and the Village Board. In summary, the draft regulations would allow ADUs as a special use subject to the following. ADUs must be authorized through a streamlined special use process, which requires a public hearing before approval. The PCZBA has also recommended that the Village Board adopt fee reductions or waivers to facilitate the constructions of ADUs and re-evaluate the continued necessity of regulating these units as a special use after no more than 5 years. Number 2, ADUs are included in, subject to all of the village typical bulk regulations, and are also subject to additional restrictions on location, height, and scale. ADUs are limited to a maximum size of 800 square feet or 1,500 in the country estate district. Additional scale restrictions also apply relative to the principal structure. Number 3, short-term rentals continue to be prohibited in ADUs. There are provisions that allow ADUs to be rented, but that would prohibit an ADU from being rented separately from a rental of a principal residence. The PCZBA opened a public hearing concerning the application at its November 17 meeting and made minor changes based on public feedback. At the conclusion of the hearing, the PCZBA recommended unanimously that the village board approve the attached draft ordinance. Questions?
I just want to clarify, I had a question earlier today, and I just want to make sure it's 100% clear that the PCZBA did recommend that this get examined another 5 years, but that's not written in the ordinance, the text of the ordinance where it has from time to time, there's been like a sunset provision on certain things. That's not in here, just to clarify. And the other element, they did say, look at ways to incentivize these through some permitting. That's not in here either. We can talk about that as part of the budgeting when we look at the fee schedule and so forth. You'll get a chance to visit that then. But just to clarify, that's not part of this ordinance.
Is there a Reader's Digest version of the small changes that were made from that last meeting? It says,
I think they're underscored there in the different colored font.
okay.
I'm sorry, they're in blue on page 200, shame to say, 246 of your packet.
I see, I'm not even in the packet because it wouldn't
Oh,
open.
I'm sorry.
So now I'm on.
But it's page 5 of the ordinance.
Oh, that's helpful. I
So
can
it's
do that.
E3.
I can do that.
And then later again on H2, there's some language struck.
Drew, could I ask a question?
Certainly.
That we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
On page 3 of the document, it talks immediately, A is a separate entrance that allows ingress and egress from the exterior of the property. And it just seems really vague to me. Are we talking about an entrance to the actual unit? Is it a driveway? Is it a door? It's so vague, I don't know how that would be construed. Are we talking about a curb cut on the property? It just doesn't, it seems like a separate entrance to get in and out of the exterior of the property being the dwelling unit, but in what kind of entrance?
Yeah, Glenn, Glenn's the staff liaison to the PZZBA. Glenn, could you clarify that as well as the purpose? If there was that conversation at the PZZBA, yeah.
Sure. So it's intended to refer to an entry door. It's a little vague just in that it might not necessarily be a door, right? You might go into a vestibule and then there are 2 doors, but the idea is a separate private entrance.
Okay. Because, I mean, the ingress and egress could refer to a driveway. So I just was wondering, because exterior of the property as opposed to exterior of the unit.
Of the dwelling.
Of the dwelling unit.
Well, the goal is that you don't have to enter into one dwelling unit to enter into the other, that you can access it.
Right, and so I'm just wondering if it's just a drafting change, the exterior of the dwelling unit as opposed to the property, which to me means the property generally, the whole piece of property. So you have I'm just trying to clarify that because it doesn't make sense
I think
to
if
me.
you have to read A and B with the initial sentence. It's a dwelling unit that has a separate entrance that allows ingress and egress from the exterior of the property.
Okay.
And we can mess around with A and B if you want, but
No, I get
I
it.
think you gotta look at, it's part of a longer sentence.
Coal in there that's obscured.
You can fight it out outside in the parking lot.
Do you have reading glasses on? Yes.
Okay, do we satisfy your curiosity?
Yes, and I mean, what Drew and I talked about, this is just a case-by-case basis, because we're at this early stage of this, but given the lot sizes, especially on the east side of town, I don't know that this is gonna be a runaway train, but I think a lot of people are concerned about bulk and what it also means for stormwater when we add another structure to a lot. Those were the things that I had on my mind.
But there's a limit on bulk ordinance, so it's fine. I mean, we have limits on all that. Okay, thank you, Kate. Any more questions? If no more question, do we have any?
Good question.
Another heated conversation.
If there's any comments on this item, please raise your hand from the public on the Zoom chat. There are none.
So
Mr.
hearing
President.
none, it is a voice vote, correct?
First reading.
And it's a first reading, so all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion carries. Thank you very much. Number 21, a resolution authorizing the village to participate in national opioid settlements. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. In July of this year, a settlement was announced in litigation against manufacturers and distributors of opioid painkillers. As you may be aware, the $26 billion settlement arose out of Ohio litigation brought by states and cities against the three largest pharmaceutical distributors, McKesson, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen, and a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson as a manufacturer, which account for most opioid sales in America. Illinois cities and counties have until January 2nd, 2021 to opt into the settlement to potentially receive its benefits or decline to do so, preserving its right to sue opioid distributors and manufacturers directly. Suing the opioid distributors and manufacturers directly would likely be costly, inefficient, and would require the Attorney General's permission. Unfortunately, the village was not spared of the impact of a national opioid crisis, and opting into the settlement will amplify the state's ultimate distribution. Should the village opt into the settlement and receives funds, it can use settlement funds primarily to abate the impacts of opioids on the village, including funding, intervention, treatment, education, and recovery services. The village may also authorize direct payments to local agencies or transfer funds and the burden to spend them appropriately and account for them to Lake County. If the village does not act by the deadline, then it will be understood to have opted out of a settlement. Approval of this resolution will direct the village administrator to complete all participation documents to participate in the settlement. Questions? I do not see any questions. So hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Brienne? Aye. Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
So next is item number 23, a resolution authorizing an amendment to the construction contract with Chicagoland Paving Contractors for the Village of Lake Bluff's 2021 Pathway Resurfacing Improvement Project. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. On September 13, 2021, the Village Board of Trustees awarded the 2021 Pathway Resurfacing Improvements Project to Chicagoland Paving Contractors of Lake Zurich, Illinois, as the contractor, to complete the 2021 Pathway Resurfacing Improvements Project at a total extended unit price amount of $225,000. While the contract required the path repair work to be completed no later than December 3rd, 2021, less than 10% of the work has been completed to date because the contractor took on more projects than it could complete by their respective deadlines and is now requesting additional time to complete the work, and that the village not pull and cash in the bond despite the contractor failure to comply with the terms of a contract, in order to, one, secure these low unit prices from an otherwise competent contractor, two, avoid rebidding in an environment where the village would likely only find higher unit pricing, and three, sidestep a protracted legal fight, and four, take advantage of a $2,500 credit. Village staff recommends the following amendments to the contract. Number one, revised schedule. Chicagoland must begin work no later than 7 days after the asphalt plants open next spring and will reach completion no later than May 15, 2022. Should the weather cooperate, it would only take about 2 weeks to substantially complete all path improvements. Number two, increased security. Chicagoland must provide a letter of credit in the amount of $260,000 to ensure that Chicagoland will fulfill its obligations. Failure to satisfy all of the contractual obligations will result in the village drawing on the LOC and seeking any other legal remedies available. Number 3, no change in unit pricing. In addition to the scope of work outlined in the original contract, Chicagoland will complete other resurfacing work at the contract price up to the total project cost up to $260,000. The village can take advantage of its pricing to complete more path patching than originally contemplated up to the fiscal year 2022 budgeted figure of $260,000. The contractor is prepared to accept these changes, and village engineer Jeff Hansen will be present to answer any questions from the village board. Question of the board.
I guess the question I have is, if the contractor took on more capacity of work than they had the ability to fulfill, we were not prioritized. And how do we guarantee being prioritized in the future? Because certainly we had legal remedies, you know, before these changes that we don't want to pursue because it's costly and inefficient and all of those other very good reasons. So, I mean, really, are we, what assurance do we have that we're not just going to be put lower in the priority list yet once again?
The letter of credit.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than a bond. That is a much bigger hammer.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions on the board? Jeff, any comment on this item, if you're online?
Yeah, we'd like to get this taken care of as early as we can in the spring. And obviously, we'll remember this for future bids, but I think this is in the best interest of the village.
Right.
Thank you. Questions? So hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is our trustee's report. Do any trustee wish to make a report this evening? And I understand Joy wants to make a report.
I have a little report. If you haven't been down to the East Lake Forest train station, you should take a little walk down there on Thursday, Friday, or Saturdays through the end of the year, December 30th. It's a beautiful little holiday pop-up shop that they've got going down there with 14 nonprofits represented. All the proceeds of anything you buy in there go to nonprofits. So whether it's Croya or Pause for Patrick or Deer Path Art League, I know there's a whole other slew of nonprofits that are represented there. The booster store, the high school booster store is down there as well. So if you get a chance, it's at the East Lake Forest train station, Thursdays through Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. through December 30th of this year. And I'm sure all those nonprofits would appreciate it.
Thank you, Joy.
Sure.
Any more trustee report? Thank you.
Sure.
Next is our consideration of the November 22nd, 2021 executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is our executive session. I understand that we'll have an executive session tonight. Might I get a motion to get into closed session to discuss pending personal matters and executive session meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Thank you. So this concludes the open part of the village board meeting. Thank you for tuning in attendance and have a great evening.